We called it the potato keeper. It held 5 pounds of potatoes. It was this plastic box. Ugly. I think it was tan with a green top. I was sure that was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen. And the guy that was my contact with that company, he said to me, "Bill, don't tell the owner that you think it's stupid," because that's his prized thing. And so I decided, well, maybe if I think it's so bad, maybe it'll sell. And Pat, that was one of the best selling items. So I've here in the U.S., so I've often joked that if I think it's stupid, it probably will sell.
You're listening to Customer Growth Sessions, presented by Intergrowth, where we talk through strategies to help up-and-coming e-commerce businesses bring in more customers. I'm your host, Pat Ahern. Let's jump in.
All right, listeners, welcome back to the latest episode of Customer Growth Sessions. Today, I'm thrilled to have on Bill McHenry, the founder and CEO over at Widgeteer. Bill, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks, Pat. I really appreciate your time today. It's always great to have a conversation.
Definitely. And thank you again for all the potty training advice. My son's going through that phase. It was super helpful before we jumped in today. Great way to start any episode.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime. Let me know how it goes. No pun intended.
Well, Bill, give us an overview of Widgeteer. What do you guys do over there?
Well, I founded Widgeteer about 20 years ago, and right now what we do is we basically design and develop and manufacture housewares products with a focus on entertaining. We're based in Chicago, and we sell most major retailers and minor retailers in the United States and really a little bit in North America, and kind of expand beyond that into food service and so on. We focus on entertaining, so think serveware, glassware, and so on.
I love it. Great overview. Before we jump into current day Widgeteer, talk to me a little about how the company started and what you guys were doing in the very early stages, because obviously it's a little different than what you're doing today.
Oh, much, much different. I will tell you a little story about the guy that I founded Widgeteer with, because I think that's more fascinating than anything. He actually was the inventor of the porta potty. The toilet in every boat and RV in the world was Ron's invention back in 1959. We became the Widgeteer because he was a mouseketeer. Prior to, many years ago, he worked for Walt Disney, and it wasn't the company Walt Disney, it was actually Walt Disney, the man. And he developed the way fountains work in Disney World and the mechanism used. And so we were going to sell widgets, and Ron said we're going to become Widgeteer. So that was kind of an interesting start. And then we had the one product that he had invented. It didn't work. Well, I shouldn't say it that way. It did work, but the product was called Vacket, and the bags that we used, it was basically a product that allowed you to remove air from any zip-tight freezer bag. Well, zip-tight freezer bags are not airtight, and we didn't realize, well, we should have looked into it. That was another mistake, but we didn't look into it. And that was our first product, and we sold a few and lost a little more than that. And it just kind of evolved from there. So it was a very good learning experience and a very slow beginning for Widgeteer.
So talk to me about, maybe I'd call it like phase 2 of Widgeteer, when you started getting into what I would describe as finding other great products in Europe, in South America, you name it, and starting to bring those back to the US.
Sure. In fact, that's actually what happened. The next phase of it was that I was actually opening a bottle of wine with my dad at a place we own in northern Michigan, and kind of complaining about Widgeteer. And my dad said to me, "Well, where's that from?" He was talking about the corkscrew. And we had found it at a retailer in Chile, in actually Santiago, Chile. And we called it, the reversible corkscrew, I think is what we called it. Now I don't remember. Anyway, so we launched that at the Housewares show probably in 2011. And it won a Global Innovation Award at the show. And it kind of expanded from there. And what came of that is that we started importing brands from Europe. So that product was actually made by a Spanish company, and they had cookware in plastic containers. So we imported that, and then they knew people who knew people, and it just kind of evolved from there. And all of a sudden, I had about 7 or 8 brands that we were importing into the U.S. and selling. So that was phase 2, and that lasted probably I don't know, 5 or 6, 7, maybe as I think it out loud here, maybe more like 8 or 9 years. But it wasn't sustainable because the euro was changing. That made it much more expensive. The shipping costs were getting higher. It was just harder and harder to make any profit. So we evolved from there and just finally gave up on the brands.
Absolutely. Not to mention, I know you guys ran into a supply issue where a lot of these products were selling out in the US market and then you couldn't get them back in stock in Europe. Tell me more about that.
Well, that was frustrating, Pat, because there was a lot of products that actually sold real well, but didn't sell in Europe. And so the companies that we were importing product from, they would just discontinue the item and they wouldn't let me know. And all of a sudden it was gone. And a couple of them actually destroyed the tooling. So we couldn't get it anymore. And it was, I mean, it just ended. It was like stopped. So that made it very difficult. And then a lot of companies, they weren't used to shipping containers of product here. So we had to make sure that we had enough product in that container to make it worthwhile to ship. And a lot of them were just full of air and they wouldn't nest things. And it was a bit of a challenge. And then the euro went to $1.30, and that really hurt us. It's still, I think, around $1.08, but to go up 30 cents more for an item that really shouldn't have been that way made it very difficult to make a profit.
Definitely, definitely. And I remember when that happened, when the euro went up to, it was like $1.30, $1.40. I was studying abroad in Sweden at the time. And as a broke college kid, that's not the time that you want your dollar to be worth 30 to 40% less.
No. It was really, really difficult. And there was really not a lot we could do. And unfortunately, we priced the product based on not dollar for euro, but we built in some pricing, but not or cost, but not enough. And the other challenge was it was really just Bill McHenry. And I have a sales and marketing background, not a finance background, nor did I understand logistics at all. So it was an experience.
So during this stage of the business, I'm curious how you went about finding what you thought was going to sell really well in the US market. You shared that a lot of these products were not selling well in Europe. So something must have caught your eye that led you to say, hey, despite this fact that this is flopping in Europe, I'm really confident that this will work out in the US market.
Yeah, a lot of it was a gut feeling. Well, there's actually two things. A lot of it was a gut feeling that it would probably sell here. And often I was right. Quite often I was wrong. But the other thing that was really interesting was an item that I thought was, forgive me, stupid, maybe is a better word. Like we had a potato, we called it the potato keeper. It held 5 pounds of potatoes. It was this plastic box. Ugly. I think it was tan with a green top. And I was sure that was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen. And the guy that was my contact with that company, he said to me, he said, Bill, don't tell the owner that you think it's stupid. He said, because that's his prized thing. And so I decided, well, maybe if I think it's so bad, maybe it'll sell. And Pat, that was one of the best selling items. So here in the US, so I've often joked that if I think it's stupid, it probably will sell. So I kind of go two ways now.
Oh, man. So I'm curious if you remember any of the specific products that your gut told you, hey, I think this is going to sell really well in the US.
Yeah, there was some different containers we had from a brand out of Italy that I thought were really thought out very well to store like vegetables and so on. It had a basket so the air would flow underneath it and it was real pretty. So I thought that would do well, and it did. There was a brand out of actually Sweden that had real pretty product for more giftable products, and I thought that would be a success, and it was for a time until the dollar changed and so on. A lot of it was really gut feeling of what I thought people liked and wouldn't like, and then I would bring in samples and share it with the friends that I knew would tell me what they thought. In fact, I joked. A lot of people say you never ask your parents. Well, I remember when I started the company and we had Vacket, my mom said to me, I'll never buy it. I would never buy that. And I should have listened to her. So my theory now, it was at that time, anybody that would be like my mom and really tell me the truth, I would talk to. And that helped me a lot too. It was kind of like a focus group to decide.
And I find that so valuable to have even just a handful of people in your life that will give you that candid feedback. I'm curious if there are, for listeners that maybe are looking for some of these people, are there certain maybe feeler questions that you'd recommend they put out, or certain traits to look for to indicate like, hey, this person might be a really good person that'll give you that honest feedback?
I wish I could say yes. I really don't. There's all sorts of focus groups you can pay for. And they can be very, well, I was going to say very inexpensive. They can be relatively inexpensive, and they can be incredibly expensive. I could never afford that. So I just knew people that, over the years, I loved to network. If you and I connected because of a guy I met at a trade show that did a podcast that knew you. And I mean, that's kind of the way my life has always been. So I knew people who knew people. And I just made sure that when I did look for the people that were doing the focus groups, is that they would really tell me their thoughts. The other thing I did, and we still do it today within Widgeteer, is that like our design team is all different ages. We've got a couple millennials, we've got one Gen Z person on our team, and then we also have a couple people my age that really look at things. And I think that's important too, because you want a broad mix of people that you're trying to get their opinion.
Hey listeners, reaching out with a big favor request. If you have taken anything of value away from the podcast, could you take a minute and leave us a review on whatever podcasting platform you're tuning in on? Whether that be Apple, Spotify, you name it, it would mean the world to us. Helps other listeners just like you to find the podcast and helps us to grow our following. Similarly, if you're on YouTube, give our page a follow, give this video a thumbs up. It all, again, helps us to grow the podcast. With that, back to the show.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's so much value, as you said, behind having different age groups, different demographics that are on your team that can speak to your point of views of different potential customers.
Exactly.
Fascinating. Within the sampling side of things, I'm curious how you brought the units back to the US. Was it as simple as like, hey, here's 2 suitcases, we're going to pack these up with as many of these, wine openers as we can fit in there? Or was it a more legitimate manner? Legally, if you can tell us, how did you approach that one?
Yeah, no, I would bring back samples, or I'd have them mail me samples. I remember when we started with the one Italian company I mentioned, they sent me samples of everything they had, case of each. There was about 50 boxes, and I had forgot about it. And I remember they were supposed to deliver it, I forgot, somewhere else, and they delivered it to my house. And I asked my neighbor if she would go pick it up and move it into the garage, and she pulled into the driveway, and there was stacks and stacks. Fortunately, it was all light plastic boxes, but they were huge boxes that she had to move into the garage. So we did that. And then, suitcases too, but as time went on, of course, we started shipping, not at the time, it was pallets and containers. Now we ship only containers of product, which again was kind of a fascinating thing for me too, because I had never done that, nor did I have a clue how to do that. So it was really interesting. Talking about networking, and I always believe, it sounds weird sometimes, but I've always believed if you think about what you are looking for and visualize it, know what it is, you'll see it and it'll come to you. And when I launched the corkscrew, I mean, I had no clue I wanted 1,000 pieces and I had no clue. How do I get 1,000 pieces from Spain to this warehouse I had here in Chicago? And I happened to be at a luncheon sitting next to this guy, and it was a round table. It's hard for me because I can't hear in my right ear. So I always focus on the person sitting on the left side of me. And this guy actually his name was Bill. I'll never forget it. And I said, so what do you do? And he said, well, I'm a forwarder. And I'm like, what's a forwarder? Well, then he told me they bring things in from other countries and bring it here so we can sell it. And it was like, God helped me somewhere along the way. It was a week later. I'm like, oh, I need you. And then I didn't understand how it works. And I said, well, what do you do? And he said, well, you just give me the address of where it is and the address where you want it. And he said, and I'll take care of it, and it'll show up in the address you want it at. And I'm like, oh, is that easy? He goes, kind of, yeah. So that's what we did. And that's been my whole life, Pat. I keep my eyes open and I network like crazy.
Within that, I'm curious to hear about phase 3 of Widgeteer. And I'll take over, but I'll hint it as starting to develop your own products in-house. Tell us a little more about, call it phase 3 of the business.
Well, and it really is a good way to look at it too, because phase 3 has been interesting and more fun. As we were getting out of the brands and I was realizing that we weren't going to be able to make the profit I needed, and nor would we have the control that we needed, we started looking for other ways of developing product. And we just happened to be at a customer that we were presenting product to do private label with. And I'll never forget the buyer said, well, you guys have so many things. Why don't you create your own brand? And my mom, of course, passed away several years ago, and my dad as well. But my mom's name was Dorothy Jeanne Fitzpatrick, and she loved to entertain. So my son, who works for me, and I decided that we would name our brand Jeanne Fitz. And we started with Jeanne Fitz, and it was going to be focused on entertaining. And so, like when you asked me what we do, the long answer is we make housewares products. The short answer is we focus on entertaining. And that's what we've done. And so we really focus on product that will help you serve, into, your home. And we want it to be affordable, kind of affordable luxury, if you will. And our goal is to make sure that our product is sitting out in someone's shelf or sitting out, wherever. And our goal is when someone walks into your house and you have one of our products, you say, oh, where did you get that? That's really pretty. That's our goal. And it has worked over that. So we added that. Well, then we realized that we needed a brand that would sell more seasonal items. We could sell seasonal items with, and we could focus a little bit on grocery as well. My mom used to, when she'd say goodbye, she would say Toodaloo or Toodles. And so our Toodles brand is kind of named after mom's way of saying goodbye or hi, and it's always waving. You'll see we have pictures of the sun is waving for the summer and so on. So we had our second brand, and then we decided that we wanted to get into some affordable luxury where it was kind of product that, you have fun with. Like we launched a tequila board with it and a whiskey board and so on. So that's called Hazelik. And Hazelik is actually a Dutch word, which has no real English translation other than the fact it's kind of like Kismet, like it's like the perfect item, a perfect whatever. And so Hazelik. And so we trademarked all three, and that's now been our brand. And we have about 60, 70 items, bring in and out. I never want to have too many. We have customers all over the United States, and we're really known for our ability to create items in our innovation, which has been really fun, and it's been pretty cool, to be honest.
I love that. So, Bill, I want to pick your brain on the innovation piece in particular, because as you mentioned, 60 to 70 products at any given time. Some of them are, phased in, phased out. Mm-hmm. What is your main source for ideation, for coming up with new products? Because that's a huge part of what you and the team do.
Yeah. A number of things. One is we listen to our customers. That's part of it. Number two is we talk internally on things we're looking for. And then we work with our vendors a lot, and with them, with their ideas. And we try to combine everything. So it's actually an idea that Widgeteer makes to sell in our own brands. So we work real closely, and we're out maybe 18 to 24 months on our products. We just finished presenting holiday of 2027. So that's 18 months ahead. And we're looking at spring of 2028, which makes time go fast, which actually kind of bugs me a little more, but that's neither here nor there. So we do that. And then one of I should back up. Our vendors are all privately owned family companies too. And that makes it's kind of unique for us because we're family owned as well. And to have a family owned vendor working with a family owned company here, there's a real connection between those companies. And so they really help us as well. We really, they rely on us and we rely on them. So that's helped us. And then we also have a connection in the fashion industry in Paris. And that gal has worked with, I forget all the different big names in Paris. I'd slaughter them if I could think of them anyway. But she works works or has worked with these companies. So we know what the colors are going to be. and what the design is, and kind of allows us to kind of think that way and be outside the box when we're working on items. So it's worked out really well, and a lot of our customers really appreciate that with our innovation.
I love that.
Forward thinking.
And one of my assumptions hearing that, so, I'm hearing really call it 3 to 4 big sources. One, hearing directly from your customers. 2, it sounds like having a very deliberate process where you and the team internally are coming up with product ideas.
Mm-hmm.
3 is leaning a lot on the manufacturers that you work with. And then, call it 3.5 or 4 is having a partner / contact in Paris who's giving you a lot of insights into color trends, fashion trends, you name it. Right. My assumption is, because I know you, Bill, my assumption is it's not a case where you're sitting back on your hands and just waiting for these ideas to come to you. How do you get customers? How do you get your team or these vendors to actively share these ideas? What can listeners start doing to get better ideas?
Well, what we do, we're always looking for new customers, first of all. Even if we're not selling them, we're always looking to try to sell somebody. And we sell different classes of trade too. We sell Dillard's as an example, in Williams-Sonoma, all the way down to a small independent retailer. So we just had a program with Condé Nast with GQ magazine in their box. So we do a lot of things like that. So we're always asking our customers what they're looking for. We're always sharing innovation and new ideas. Sometimes people hold things back, and they kind of show. I mean, we just spray it all out, and maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right. But I found that that's the best way to do things, is to share ideas. And then we're very creative. I believe we have a new product that's coming maybe I can't say it yet. So it's a product. It's a major regional retailer that has this mascot. And one of our glasses that we sell, one of our pieces of glassware has remember the old shaker? It was like I forget what they called those things. It was like a bubble with water in it, and you shook it, it made snow globe.
Yeah.
Okay. One of our glasses has a snow globe, and it had a snowman in it. And we were showing it to this customer, and they were kind of ho-hum. And I said, what if we put your mascot in there instead of the snowman? Well, they just thought that was the greatest thing in the world. And fast forward, we're going to be in 300 stores in about 90 days. So we do that. And one of the things I'm really proud of is we just sold Disney. And Disney, really the first vendor of Disney is brought in 8 years. And we're not a licensee. We're actually making product for Disney to sell in all their parks worldwide. And I really think that's amazing, because they have such a huge capability to work with other companies, and they picked my company to be one of them to work with, and I just find that really, really, it's really fantastic and really cool, but I'm kind of honored to be in that position. And I think our customers appreciate that. I don't take it for granted.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, it speaks volumes to the innovation that you guys are doing too. So let's talk about that second camp of innovation, the internal innovations, meeting as a team, coming up with ideas. I'm curious if you have dedicated time on the calendar where you get together with everyone on the team and do brainstorming sessions. What's almost the catalyst for those internal discussions that'll happen? Most e-commerce brands hit their first $100,000 in revenue the same way. Word of mouth, bit of organic social, and maybe some early luck on Amazon. And that system works until it doesn't. Scaling past that system requires a completely different playbook, one built around systems, not hustle. That's exactly what we build at Intergrowth. Customer acquisition systems that are designed specifically for e-commerce businesses who are ready to grow beyond what referrals and luck can get them. If that's you, book a complimentary strategy session at intergrowth.com/CGS. Once again, that's intergrowth.com/CGS.
Well, the answer to your question, yes, we do. We have a meeting, and I'm not in it. I will tell you that. It's Monday morning. And the reason I'm not in it is I don't want anyone to follow me. I'm fearful because we have different people on the team, and I'm always afraid if Bill says, this phone is the way to go, someone's going to follow me, and I don't want that. So I'm not in it. So that's part one. Part two is I've always believed we have to be innovative and think out. Well, I used to say you think outside the box, but truly there is no box. So you just need to come up with ideas. And I push my team to do that. There's no such thing as a crazy idea, I really believe. And even if you think it's crazy, throw it out there because you never know. It might be real crazy, but if we tweak it a little bit, it might all of a sudden be really cool. And that's what they do really well with. And then we have meetings with our customers, very similar, the same way, where we're talking to them, looking for new ideas, new ways of doing things. And then I'm always looking for ways to improve our capabilities. I was with 3M I was with Nestle, 3M, and Philips prior to all this stuff. And 3M was my favorite company to work for because I really thought they dotted the I's and crossed the T's when it came to logistics and customer service and so on. So I wanted to be sure that we had that kind of customer service. What I didn't realize is that with COVID happening, I hired a lot of people out of the hospitality industry. And the hospitality industry is like customer service on steroids. You are so over the top with customer service. I almost felt like I should slow them down. In fact, I almost did, but I talked myself out of it. And it's amazing. And our customers see that. And what I tell all our customers is, look, I'm not going to promise you that we're not going to make a mistake. I will promise you that we will. But I will promise you that we have integrity. And if we make a mistake, you're going to know about it ahead of time. And I'm going to tell you how we're going to fix it. And we have. And it's really worked very, very well. And our customers really appreciate that. So, wow, it's been good.
So one other follow-up question that came to mind as you were talking through the internal innovation side of things, you mentioned that you sit out at this Monday meeting to ensure that it's not a case where you're putting ideas forward and everyone on the team just says yes to them. I focus on this a lot, trying to have people on our team who are what I would describe as not yes men, which is to say if I come up with an idea that's a bad idea, that someone or multiple people on our team will tell me, hey, Pat, that's a bad idea. Like, maybe let's put that one aside. Let's work on a different idea. Let's say you come up with 5 different product ideas. How do you go about figuring out which of those 5 ideas that you personally came up with are good versus maybe garbage ideas that you need to put aside?
Well, we'll talk about it internally, and then we'll actually show it to customers and see what they think. And the customer, I never believe the customer is always right because they aren't always right. But I do believe they have a lot of good input. So we really look that way. The big thing is to really be open-minded, I think, with any kind of innovation or anything you do, just to be open-minded to things. And fortunately, my youngest son is our sales manager. And he takes off his employee hat, puts his son hat on with his dad quite often. And my wife is our COO, and she takes off her COO hat and puts her wife hat on, and they bring me back down to earth. So it's helped me a great deal, I think.
Oh, Bill, I love this. That's brilliant. It sounds like you have a good system in place where people on the team feel like they can tell you, hey, Bill, this isn't your best idea. Let's table this one.
You know what I do, Pat, with the whole team is I do a 30-minute wrap with everybody, just me and them. And what I always tell everybody, even new hires, is that if you have any issue with me or James, my son, or my wife, Nancy, or anybody on our team, let's talk it through. And more than likely, what I'll tell you is you need to go resolve it with the person you have the issue with or whatever. But if it's something you can't, I will resolve it. And I do that 30-minute wrap every month, and we have it scheduled with everybody. I do that wrap just to hear what's going on. And so the team is never afraid to tell me what's going on. And that's really been helpful. And one of our core values is family first. And a lot of people think, like your son, your wife, and so on and so forth. But it's not external family, or maybe I should say internal family, but it's also your Widgeteer family. And I really believe that's helped us a lot. And I remember when we did our core values, I told the team, because they did all the core values, I said, there's one you can't do. And they all looked at me funny. And I said, the first one is family first. And I explained it. And I said, after number 1, you guys can do it. And they all did it. It was, there was, work hard and integrity and so innovation and so on. but family first was the first one. So that's important.
So, Bill, I think the last question I want to pick your brain on is a follow-up from what you were just saying. You meet with every member of the team once a month. You make it very clear to them in that meeting, like, hey, I want to hear about any issues you're dealing with. I want to encourage you to, go reach out to people directly if you have issues with them. If you can't talk to them directly, loop me in. There are a lot of companies that talk about those sort of things that I would say don't get that sort of feedback from employees that they're looking for. And a lot of reasons could be at play, but I think probably the easiest one to assume is, hey, it's not always easy to talk to the boss about qualms that you have with his company or her company. What are the things that you do to really earn the trust of your team so that they will share that feedback with you when they have those frustrations?
Well, I never backstab anybody. So if someone says to me something about, we'll talk it through. And then I've even asked, I just did it the other day, actually. This gal that works for me was actually complaining about my son a little bit. And I said, do you want me to say something to him? And they didn't want me to. And I didn't, but we did talk it through. And I said, okay, I won't, but I want you to work it through. And I noticed today in a phone call we had, Teams call, it was very clear that the two of them had a conversation because they were both, she was following exactly what I told her to do. And he went right along with it like I thought he would. And it worked out great, so I think that piece is very helpful. We also try to have fun. I do a Friday afternoon, or rather morning stand-up, I call it. It's a half hour. The whole team's on the call. And what I do is every person goes around the room on Teams, if you will, and they say what a couple things they did during the week that moved Widgeteer forward. Has to be positive, though. So we do that, and then what I do is I have a question of the day. And my question of the day today was, what was it that you thought was really hard to do that you wound up doing anyway, and what was the outcome, and what was your experience? And everyone has to answer that question. And it kind of gets people feeling like it's not putting anybody on the spot. And, I think it's interesting, and people get to know each other. One of the gals on her team she's in the Philippines, but she's actually a mermaid. And we all know that she's a mermaid because that was a question that day. What do you do that would really surprise people? And I tell people the same, answer that too. My wife was in the circus when she was in college, and people know that. And so it kind of brings you down to a level that we're all equal, I think. And that's really, really important to do.
Bill, I love this. This has been amazing. Putting you on the spot here because we've talked about a lot of different topics. We've talked about, getting honest feedback from your team. We've talked about product innovation, sourcing really great products that you think are going to sell really well in the market. I'm curious if you have any parting wisdom for, let's say, other like early stage e-commerce businesses, particularly founders of those businesses, let's say in those three realms that we've really dove into today.
So I can put them all together in one. And I'll tell you a story. When I used to speak around the country at inventor and entrepreneur clubs, I ended every speech with the same thing. I told them about speech that Winston Churchill gave. And it was the shortest speech he ever gave. And he stood up during World War II. London was getting just massacred with bombs. And everyone kind of got quiet. He kept tapping the microphone until finally it was dead quiet in all of Trafalgar Square. And he said 7 words. He said, never give up, never, ever give up. And that would be my advice to anybody. Because you could be on the 10-yard line. I'll never forget, I was ready to give up. And this gal, she was from Detroit. And her name was Janet Sophie, I remember. And I took her to the airport. We had a meeting down by O'Hare, and I took her to the airport. And I was telling her, I'm like, Jan, I just can't do this. It's ridiculous. And she finally said, Bill, you're on the 10-yard line. And she said, so many people, you're going to make it. And I remember I got out of the car to shake her hand, goodbye, as I was helping her with her bag, whatever. She gave me a big hug, and she said, now remember, never give up. And then, of course, I saw that heard that Winston Churchill speech. So you just got to keep going. And you got to not be afraid of change, because things change, and it changes nonstop. And you just kind of got to go with it. It's not easy, I will tell you that.
I love it. I love it. And huge shout out to Janet. It sounds like, a decade ago, she said a handful of words that still stuck with you all these years later. So thank you, Janet. Bill, this has been amazing. So 2 final questions. One, for listeners that want to buy Widgeteer products, where can they find Widgeteer online?
So Widgeteer, our website is probably the best thing to do. It's widgeteerinc.com, and Inc is INC. So Widgeteer, think of Musketeer, but we sell widgets. So it's widgeteerinc.com. It's the first place. And then we sell in a lot of different retailers around the country too, but most of our products are on our website.
Brilliant. Now, where can listeners go to follow you personally? Where are you sharing content online, or are you completely offline? For those who want to follow you, where can we find you?
On LinkedIn, first of all, under Bill McHenry, and Instagram, and also Facebook. And then Widgeteer also has pages on all 3 of those. I know we have a bunch of other social media sites too that we use that I don't put anything into. The one thing I do is I do a thought of the day in the 3 I first mentioned. I won't tell you I do it every day, but probably 5 times a week, I put a thought of the day on one of those social media. And usually Instagram and Facebook's the same one, but LinkedIn is always different. And I have followers around the world, really. And that's been kind of fun. People sometimes call me the thought of the day guy. So that's another way to follow me. And then I'm also happy to chat with somebody. I've had so many people in my life help me, and a lot of them very ultra successful people that probably I can't really help. But I've always said, you got to pay it forward, and I'm happy to pay it forward with anybody. I really, truly mean that too.
Amazing. Amazing. Listeners, check out the show notes. We'll have links to Widgeteer, to Bill's LinkedIn profile, you name it. But once again, listeners, this is Bill McHenry, the founder and CEO over at Widgeteer. Bill, thank you for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure, Pat. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Customer Growth Sessions. If you found it helpful, subscribe and give us a review. It helps us to grow the show. Looking for more SEO guidance on how to grow your business? Contact us at intergrowth.com/estimator or email me directly. You can reach me at pat@intergrowth.com. That's all for today. We'll see you again soon.